Hello and welcome to this What's in You session. In this session, we're gonna review the new warehouse management features that have been released with app 10.0.21. So I'm gonna start with the first feature for the warehouse app step instructions feature. Using this feature, you can increase the user experience and the user productivity while using the warehouse management mobile app. So with this feature, you can define and display custom instructions for each step of the warehouse management flow to the end user into their devices. You can use the predefined instructions that would be available when you activate and enable this feature. However, you can also write your own instructions that match it with the business process flow and the business terminologies that usually used in the organization. Then we'll move to the second feature and review how to scan the JS1 barcodes and how to manage and define the related application identifiers. And then we'll move to the feature number three, and actually it extends the current functionality of the configurable reason codes. With the new feature, you can select and specify a specific offset account linked to a specific reason code. So when you use this reason code with the adjustment transactions, this offset account will be transacted instead of the default account that has been specified in the inventory posting profiles. After that, we review two new forms for the release to warehouse process. There are two new pages that have been added to the application. These two pages, like the current form that used to release to warehouse, but the new forms are more source document focused. So we have a new form for release to warehouse with sales orders and another form for release to warehouse for transfer orders. The next features are not brand new features, but they extended and enhanced the current process and the current functionality. The first feature here is the slot mixed units, and it is extended the current functionality of the slotting demand. This feature allows the system to slot the items into locations that include mixed units. So for example, you can mix boxes and cases of the same item into a single location. This is a configurable point for sure. So when you are configuring the slotting template line, you can choose whether the line should slot items into mixed unit locations or single unit locations. The second feature is a performance enhancement using a faster API for the containers closing and reopening on the packing station process. When this feature is enabled, the inventory transactions that related to the containers will be created using a new lightweight process to improve the performance of closing or reopening containers. And the last feature here is the decouple put away work from the ASNs. This feature for the warehouse management workload on a scale unit, this is part of the distributed hyper topology. The new feature adds a new table dedicated to store the information of the put away work. Previously, this information was stored in a tables that also used for the ASNs. These are the features that we have. We're gonna walk through these features one by one in a quick demonstration. Be aware that these features are managed by a feature management. So in order to leverage this feature and functionality, you should ensure first to activate the feature from the feature management workspace, except the release to warehouse two new forms as they already enabled by default. And now let's get started with the first feature, the warehouse app step instructions. So as we clarified in the intro, with this feature, you can change the step title. Also, you can add instructions for any step in the mobile app. So this can be useful, for example, when you are training new employees or probably if you are adding a new task to the warehouse flow. This can be also useful when you need to mention specific instructions in a certain task flow. So with this feature, you can create and display custom instructions to the end users. These instructions you can write in a way that matches with the business terminologies that used in the organization. So eventually you can speed up the process, increase the user productivity, and get the workers' attention and focus to the most important fields and steps during the flow. Now it's the application time. Let's move to the application and see how the feature really works. So first, you should ensure that the warehouse step instructions feature is active in the feature management workspace. While activating this feature, the system might take time to load the steps information and the related instructions. After enabling this feature, please navigate to the warehouse management module and then under the setup and then underneath the mobile device section, you will find that a new menu item that has been added for the mobile device steps. Here in the mobile device steps form, you will notice that the system already loaded information related to the steps that will be used in the mobile app and a related text for the input and for the confirmation. If this is your new legal entity, so you should click first create default data. So the system will load this information. Here you should find the step ID. These are the steps that will be used in the mobile app. And this is the text that will be populated as a short description for this step. And this is the text that will be populated while confirming this step. So let's find something related to a purchase order receiving process, for example. You can do a filter for PO. So this is the PO num. So this is the step that the system will ask you to enter the purchase order number. So this is step related to multiple menu items. So all the menu items that have this step, when it comes to this step, the system will ask you first, this is the title for the input. So this is the short description that will be populated to enter purchase order number. And this is the description that will be populated while confirming this step. So this is the step title, which is the short description. Let's navigate now to the detailed instructions. So if you just click on the step ID here, system will move to the detailed instructions form. So here the detailed instructions, and you will notice that this is based on the languages. So let's find the ENUS. So this is the short description. This is the step title. This is the step title for confirmation, and this is the instructions for input, and this is the instructions while confirming the step. So here the instructions for the PO num. Here the default instruction is find the purchase order in print or on a computer, and enter the purchase order number that you want to receive. These instructions and also the title could be amended. So you can amend this to be matched with your business terms that you are using in the organization. So probably you might have a default menu items for the purchase order receiving one, for example, for the raw material that you will need to validate the expiration date or another important data. However, these instructions might be vary for another menu item. So if this is the point, you can amend the input, you can amend the instruction, you can amend this for a specific menu item. So here, this is the default step for the PO num. I can amend this for a specific menu item like this. So here is the PO. I have a 3 menu items for the purchase order receiving. I have a one for this is the one default receiving and put away, and created a one for this demo, and I call it extend. So I'm gonna amend the instructions and the title for this one. I click OK. So now this is the instructions. If I wanted to amend this instructions right now, I can just click view the translation of this step. This is the default one for all the menu items. This is the one that I wanted to amend. So for example, I can just change this enter purchase order number and I can call it PO. This is a simple example. You can also amend the instructions here, so you can change this purchase order and make it PO. So for all the menu items, it will be populated like this. For this specific menu item, it will be populated like that. Then click OK. Now let's navigate to the mobile app. So here is the inbound purchase order. I have the 2 menu items. This is the default one, purchase order item receiving and put away. So here this is the step title, enter purchase order number, and this is the detailed instructions. So when the user will be confident with the step, the user can just mark this option, don't show again, and this pop-up will not be populated next time. So going back to the other menu, the extended menu or the amended menu, and we'll see that the system here is showing the title, enter PO number, and here in the instructions, find the PO number. Now let's move to the second feature, the JS1 barcode. If this is your first time to deal with the JS1 barcode, so let's define it first. The JS1 barcode format is a global standard for exchanging the data between the companies. JS1 barcode can have multiple data elements, so in a single barcode can include many types of product information like the quantity, GTIN, batch information, manufacturing date, expiration date, and so on. So here, for example, this is a JS1 128 barcode. This barcode contains the data for GTIN, packing date, and batch information. You will observe here numbers between parentheses. These numbers called application identifiers or AI. So the application identifier used by the GS1 to define the meaning and the format of the data attribute. So every application identifier here refers to a specific thing. So for example, this is 01. This 01, according to the GS1 standards, this is refers to the GTIN. And then we have 13, that refers to the backing date, and then 10, that refers to the batch information. So this feature will really simplify the scanning process in the warehouses where the pallets or the containers are labeled with JS1 barcodes. So the warehouse workers can simply scan the JS1 barcode to extract all the needed information in a single scan. This definitely will reduce the time associated with the task by eliminating the number of scanning and the manual data. This also will ensure the data accuracy during the warehouse flow. Now let's move to the application. Let's see the prerequisite setup for the JS1 barcode and a quick demonstration how to scan it. So first, I'm gonna activate the Scan JS1 barcodes feature in the feature management workspace. And after that, I'll navigate to the warehouse management parameters to define the JS1 code prerequisite value. Here in the warehouse management parameter, general tab, barcodes, you will find the value for the JS1 barcodes. So here the FNC1 character, or this is the function code one, this is invisible character that used to identify that the barcode that being scanning or read is JS1 barcodes. This is the normal character for the JS1 barcode. You can also specify a prefix for the data matrix or QR codes. And then the group separator. And the group separator used to separate the barcode sections that have a variable length of application identifier. So this character, I used the tilde character. The tilde character will separate the application identifiers in the JS1 barcode. Then let's navigate back to the warehouse management module. Here in the JS1 section, you will find three menu items for the JS1 configuration. The first one is the JS1 application identifiers, and you can use this form to identify to define and manage the normal application identifiers that you are using in the organization. For a quick start, you can click Create Default Setup, and this will load the commonly international application identifier that's used across the organization. Still, you can define and insert new application identifiers. So you just click New, mention here the AI or the application identifier code, and then type the description. And with this option, you can specify if this application identifier will have a fixed value or no. So for example, this GTIN 14, this will has a fixed length of 14 characters. However, for something like the batch will not be fixed length because the batch might be vary from a vendor to another vendor and so. So you can specify here if the application identifier will has a fixed length or no. This the length, you should mention the length here, and then you can select the type from the type list. if this is numeric, alphanumeric, or a date. Also, you can specify if this application identifier has a decimals or no. After that, we'll move to the next configuration, which is the JS1 generic setup. And this form basically will map the application identifiers to the system fields. So for example, if we select here 30, this is the application identifier of the quantity. So this application identifier is mapped with these system fields. So this application identifier mapped to the new quantity field, the quantity field, quantity adjust, and so on. Also, you can, for a quick start, you can also use the create default setup. Be aware that if you have a additional mapping or additional configuration, when you click on the default setup, this will be removed and the default data will be loaded. After that, we'll move to the JS1 policy. And basically, if you want the workers to be able to scan more than one field in a single scan, so basically you need to create a JS1 policy for these fields. And then this policy should be linked to appropriate menu item. So when also you click here, create default data, system will load commonly used policies. These policies, you can extend these policies and add new fields. Also, you can create a new policy from scratch. So I created this policy for the purchase for the raw material receiving. This will be used with the raw material purchasing that have a batch information and so. So with this policy, I have the fields of expiration date, the batch ID, the item ID, and the quantity. If you want to create a new or to insert a new field, just click new, select the field name, the application identifier, and you can also manage the sorting of these fields. After creating this JS1 policy, navigate to the mobile device menu items. And here I have the menu item for purchase order, receiving and put away. I'll select here the policy that I just created in the JS1 policy. And then for this demonstration, I created this purchase order. This is a simple purchase order that has only one purchase order line. This purchase order line for this item ID and this item ID is mapped with a GTIN code. Now let's navigate to the warehouse management mobile app. So here with the purchase order receiving and put away menu, I'll enter here the purchase order ID, and then the system will ask to enter or to scan the item ID. I don't have here a real scanner, but we can use a workaround. We can just enter the value that will be scanned from the scanner. So when you scan the barcode, here in our demo we have, this is the prefix or the FNC1 character that we specified. And then we have application identifier for the item ID. This is the item, this is the GTIN. And we have here the separator character, and then application identifier that represents the quantity. And this is the quantity, 30 pieces. And then we have again the character that will separate another application identifier, which is 10, that represents the batch information. And then application identifier, and then application identifier of 17 that represents the expiration date. And the date format here should be year, month, and then days. So just click enter. So here the system identified the item number. This is the item number that I used, and this is the quantity, 30 eaches. And if I click OK here and see the batch information, this is the B1 batch that I specified in the barcodes. The next feature is post on hand adjustments using configurable reason codes connected to offset accounts. This is kind of enhancement for the current process that initially developed to add efficiency, speed, and clear documentation to the inventory adjustment process by enabling the warehouse workers to select predefined adjustment reason codes like damage, expired, and so, while they are registering the inventory adjustment transactions. With the new feature, a new functionality has been added to logically group the reason codes into a reason group. This functionality has been added with the objective to reduce the number of reason codes that appear to the user while using the warehouse management mobile app. And the second functionality is the ability to link the reason code to a specific offset account. So while posting inventory adjustment transactions, this offset account will be transacted instead of the default account that has been specified in the inventory posting profile form. This feature will enable the finance team to provide informative reports and accurate financial statements. So first, I'll navigate to the feature management workspace to enable the post on hand adjustments using configurable reason codes connected to offset account feature. And then I'll move to the inventory management module to complete the required setup. If this is your first time to work with the counting reason codes, so we're gonna also walk through the required configurations for this process before reviewing the new functionalities. Now let's navigate to the inventory management module. And here under the setup, then inventory, and the first thing that you should configure is the counting reason code policies. You can use this reason code policies to determine if the reason code is mandatory or optional while posting inventory transaction, inventory adjustment transactions. So I have defined two policies. The first one is mandatory and the second one is optional. Then you can also link this policy to a specific warehouse. So I'm gonna use in this demonstration the warehouse 80. So I can link this policy from here, counting using code policy, select the policy, click OK, and this is the policy that is linked to this warehouse. It also be possible to link the policy on the warehouse on the item level. So here in the release product form for this item, I can link a specific policy from here. Counting using code policy, select the policy, click OK. This is the policy is associated with this item. And then the next configuration is the counting reason codes. So with the counting reason codes, you can define the reason codes that the organization used in the daily process. After enabling this feature, you will be also able to link a specific reason code like this one for a charity. You can link this one to a specific offset account like this one, inventory adjustment stores. So this means that while posting inventory transaction for this reason code, this account will be transacted. However, for example, for this consignment reason code, this reason code is not linked to a specific offset account. So the default account in the inventory posting profile form will be used. The next configuration here is the counting reason code groups. And you can also use this new group that will be available after enable the feature. You can use this form to logically group the counting reason codes to a specific reason code group. So for example, I created here a group for store operations, and then I linked this group to these reason codes. The next configuration is the mobile device menu item. So I'm gonna use the adjustment out menu item in this demonstration. From the warehouse mobile menu item, you can link the menu item to a specific counting reason code group like this. I'll use here the adjustment out group. You can default a specific reason code like this one. These reason codes that associated with this reason group. So I'll define here the default code will be damaged. And also you can determine if the this reason code will be displayed to the end user in the mobile device menu item or no. So here I have line, this will be displayed. I can also hide this reason code. You can specify if the user can change or reselect another reason code if the edit counting reason code is enabled. So for this adjustment out, I have this default reason code damage. It will be displayed to the user and the user can change or reselect another reason code. I'll use another menu item, which is charity menu item. So this charity menu item is associated with counting reason group store operations. The default reason code is a charity, but this is hide. So it will not be displayed to the user. And accordingly, the user will not be able to edit or change this reason code. Now let's navigate to the warehouse management mobile app to validate this process. So I'm going to start first with the menu item of adjustment out. So click on the adjustment out and then I'll select the license plate. License plate will be 503. I'm going to confirm the item and the location. So see here, this is the default reason code. It has been populated here automatically. Since this defined here, if this is blank, so a pop-up will be populated to the user so the user can select appropriate reason code. And since this edit counting reason code is enabled, yes, so the user can change this reason code. So I'm gonna click here and then I can select another reason code from the predefined reason codes that associated with this counting reason group. I'm gonna confirm this adjustment out transaction. And let's validate the second menu item, which is the charity. Let me scan the license plate 504. I'm confirming the item and location. See here, since the default counting reason code is charity, but the display counting reason code is hide. That's why the reason code is not visible to the user. And since also this is not visible and the edit counting reason code is no, so the user will not be able to change this reason code. So let me also validate click OK. And now let's navigate to the release product form and navigate the vouchers that have been posted. So here in the manage inventory transactions, so we have two transactions. The first one posted for the license plate 504. Let me check here the financial voucher. Sorry, this is the purchased. We should look to. Yes, where's the 504? Yes, it should be this one, the sold one. So if we check here the ledger financial voucher, see the account that has been used here is the inventory adjustment stores. This is the account is linked to this reason code that we selected in the charity menu item. However, if we check the other sold transaction for the license plate 503, which is linked to the menu item adjustment out that has no specific offset account, if we check the financial voucher, see the account that has been posted here is the inventory profit and loss account. This is the account, the default account is linked to the posting profile inventory expenditure loss. And now let's move to review the new release to warehouse forms. But first, let's navigate to the legacy form, the release to warehouse. So the first thing when you navigate to the old form, I see this pop-up populates stating that to work more efficiently, use the new release to warehouse pages. As we clarified in the intro, there are two new forms that have been added to the application 10.0.21. The first form is release sales orders to warehouse, and the second form is release transfer orders to warehouse. The new pages are more source document focused and provide significantly improved performance compared to the current release to warehouse page, which is scheduled for depreciation. I do believe it really worth to start review and test the new forms, especially with the good performance of the new forms, and since this old form is already scheduled for deprecation. So let's navigate to the new forms. The first form is the release sales orders to warehouse. And I see this form is designed to maintain the sales orders. So I can see here, this is the sales order lines, and I see some relevant filters to the sales orders, like the sales order ID, the customer account, site, warehouse, requested ship date, and so on. Let's do a filter on this sales order. So in order to use this form and start to release sales orders to warehouse, what I do here, I apply the filter for this specific warehouse, for this sales order. So what I can do now, I can just add this line to the release to warehouse section, and then release the sales order line. Also, I can add the entire order to the release to warehouse section. So if I click here, this is the only line. If I click add order, it will include all the lines to the release to warehouse. This is a warning for the unavailability of the on hand. And following the normal process of release to warehouse, you can just select the line or the all lines and click release to warehouse. And now let's navigate to the release transfer orders to warehouse. I see it somehow like the sales order form, but this is specific for the transfer orders. It works in the same way. Select the order, you can add the line, you can add all the lines, and then you should click the release to warehouse. And now it's the time of the last feature, the slot mixed units feature. The slot mixed unit feature enrich the warehouse slotting functionality by adding a new option to manage whether the slotting template line should slot the items into locations that have this item, but in a different unit of measure, or to slot the items to locations that have a single unit of measure. Before reviewing the new feature, I'd like first to summarize and walk through the normal business process flow of the warehouse slotting. Basically, the warehouse slotting is a kind of replenishment that allows the user to create replenishment work based on the current demand of the sales order. So the process starts by collecting the current demand of the sales orders, then to consolidate and to summarize this demand. Once the demand will be identified, the slotting process will assign all the demand to the picking locations. When the picking locations will be identified, the replenishment work will be created to bring the inventory to the picking locations. After managing the replenishment work, now the picking locations already have the on hand, so the sales order can be released to the warehouse. When the sales orders are released to the warehouse, they can just use the inventory that has been moved to the picking locations. Now let's move to the application and see how this process works in Dynamics 365 for supply chain management. So first I'll navigate to the feature management workspace to activate the slot mixed units feature. But be aware that the main functionality is managed by the warehouse slotting feature. So also you should enable and activate this feature. Then I'll navigate to the warehouse management module and then setup, replenishment, slotting templates. I will not deep dive into the slotting template configurations, but I'm gonna just highlight the key points and important points with the slotting template process. So here I have a slotting template for warehouse 87, where the demand type is sales orders. This could be also for transfer orders. And the demand strategy is the sales order lines with the status ordered. This template is linked and associated with a query, predefined query. Just to make the demo simple as much as I can, I specified here a single item, this item. And then on the slotting template details, the slotting locations will be associated with location profile ID pick. This for sure could be configured based on the business requirements. And then I created this simple purchase order for this item. This item managed by two unit of measures. The first one is each, the second one is box, where the box equal 10 eaches. I have a sales order here where the demand is 75 eaches. So when I go back to the slotting template, I'll start by generate the demand. So this will calculate and consolidate the demand. Then I'll review here the slotting demand. So here we have 7 boxes and 5 eaches. This is for warehouse 87 and for this item. Then if I go back, I can locate the demand. And this is the step where the picking locations will be identified. Be aware that this is the new column that we just discussed, the slot mixed unit. Here I'm not enabled this option. This means that the items will be the item will be slotted, but for the locations that have single unit of measure. So if I click here, locate demand, and then I'll review the slotting plan. So you will notice that the 7 boxes have been assigned to the picking location 0004, and the 5 eaches have been assigned to the location with 0005. If I go back now and enable this feature, so this means that the items with different unit of measures could be slotted to the same location. Let me try again to locate the demand and review the slotting plan. Try it now. This will be consolidated to the same peak location. So the last step here is to run the replenishment. When you run the replenishment, the system will create the replenishment work from the location specified in the location directive or on the replenishment to the speaking location of 0004. So this was an overview with some demonstrations that showing the new warehouse management features that have been released in app 10.0.21. Thanks for watching. Reach out if I can help. Take care and good luck.